Sure. So yeah, I kind of so that's my Twitch there, as you can see. So yeah, that was my short little kind of hobby during pandemic. So yeah, what else can you do? Stream coding. Who doesn't like that, right? So okay, so today I'm going to talk a little bit about this tool that in TerminusDB we have used kind of or introduce a tool that is working with Singerio. So which is a very discovered is a very cool tool for people who may be like kind of managing data or like moving data around. So yeah, I just gotta, it's open source because I love open source. I'm just gonna introduce you to this tool. These are my contact details down there. If you want to kind of discuss further or have any other things you want to talk about, graph, database, terminus DB, of course, you know where to find me. So first of all, my name is Cheuk. So I'll just introduce myself a little bit because I'm new to this community here. So I love open source. I am an enthusiast about open source community. So I've been involved in like various kind of small projects in the past, but right now I'm very glad that I am now working with the great team in TerminusDB. So my area is Python. For those of you who don't know, so yeah, so I'm just like a Python developer. If you can think about it, my background actually was a data scientist, and then I moved to kind of doing Python development, and then now I'm also doing developer relations. So yeah, so it's a fun time. Also, I am very involved in the Python community. I am organizing various Python events and conferences. So for those of you who are interested, I can give you a recommendation. Just ask me afterwards. Also, mention again, I stream on Twitch during the pandemic lockdown time. Now the world opened up again. I'm doing it less, but all the videos are still there. So feel free to check it out. So first of all, what is Singer.io? So Singer.io is something that we discover. I actually I don't represent them or like don't have any official like liaison with them. So it's just something that is open source. I discovered that like we use, which is quite cool. So it's ETL tool. So like I said, is when you have data that you need to transport from one place to another place. Sometimes you have to do some kind of manipulation. You have to kind of make sure that the data, sometimes you want it to preserve well when you put it from one place to another. Sometimes you may want to clean it up a little bit or do some transformation before you put it into another place. So that's why ETL is kind of like a big thing for data engineers or data architect. So this Singer.io is an open source, as you can see, tool. So the idea of how they work is that they will have a lot of tabs and targets. So imagine it as kind of like a pipe, right? So you would have tabs that kind of, something come in. So it's like it kind of describe the tool that is connected to your source. So where your data is coming from. And target is the part that it is connected to your target, as its name suggested. So where you want the data to end up in. So that's the tabs and the targets kind of concept. So the idea is that with Singer.io, there is actually a kind of standard of how you communicate. These tab and targets communicate with each other. So as long as the tab can get the data from the source and the target can put the data to the target, you can use different tabs and targets to mix and match to build your own pipeline. So that's the idea. So mix and match. Because they have these kind of streams, I will show you in a bit that they are it's standardized. So how the tabs would handle the data from the source and then convert it into this stream is kind of standardized. Well, it's not like the process is not standardized, but the output is standardized. So when the targets get it, it's kind of so it works with any of the tabs, right? So when you develop a target, it should recognize these kind of streams, which from all of these like universally from different tabs. So so that's why different tabs and targets, they can communicate and talk to each other. And also it's built with Python. I am a Pythonista, as I said earlier. I love Python, so it's really good for me to use this tool. It's very convenient. So why do we discover that, and then why do we think that it's a good idea to provide the tabs and the target for users, and why I'm here to promote using it? First of all, it's free, it's open source. Like I love all these tools that like people kind of spend their, well, I mean, like some projects, they're more like a few developers kind of really doing it in their spare time. But I think Singer, they have an organization to support it. So, but it's still free and open source, still live in the open source space. So that's why you can contribute by building your own tabs and targets, or even like if you found something that is wrong, you can step in and go to their GitHub. So all of their stuff are on GitHub, so you can go to their GitHub and open issues, suggest changes, PRs, all this stuff. You can do it, which is good. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So if like for example, you want to get some data from, let's say get some data from MongoDB, let's say, I guess someone has already done it, probably for a kind of well-known database. So you don't have to do the thing, like for example, transport like MongoDB's data into let's say TerminusDB, right? Put it in TerminusDB. So you don't have to kind of figure it out, like how to extract this data from Mongo anymore, because someone has already done it. You just need to grab and use it. So maybe that person doesn't put it in TerminusDB, they put it in something else, but you want to put it in TerminusDB, you just need to get the TerminusDB target and then plug it in. It will still work. So by breaking down this kind of pipeline into two sections and mix and match, it opens up a lot of possibilities, and you don't have to. So it kind of save a lot of time of rewriting some duplicate codes by different people. Also, there are lots of options for the users to do. Like you are not fixed to, because I have these legacy ETL process. I can't really like reuse it if I change to another technology. So it kind of opened up a lot of options for people who want to, for example, try something new like TerminusDB. Then you have but we have single IO pipelines, and then you'll be like, oh, this fine. They have the target. We can just plug it in and use it. It's like good, right? So it opened up a lot of options. Also, it's very easy to maintain because it's open source. Like, I mean, as long as the Taverns target that you're using are well maintained, then it's good. It's not dusty. So if you're using something very common tool, so everybody's kind of maintain it for everyone, right? So it's always a good thing. So I've talked about a little bit about it. So I will just give you a quick tour. So yeah, so there's a lot in the slides, by the way. I'm just gonna give a lot of kind of walking around on the, we'll just make it bigger, just so for presentation's sake. So yeah, this is their website. Again, I have no official association with them, but I want to show you how many like Singer tabs and targets that they have. TerminusDB is not putting on here yet because we are relatively new, but you see they support lots of different technologies. So yeah, you can see that they have quite good kind of things you can do. Like for example, I think I was going to demonstrate GitHub a little bit today, but also there are lots of things. So some of them, for example, GitHub is just an API, but they build a tab. So the source is not limited to another database. It could be an API. So it's kind of quite good that you can use it with a lot of things and don't have to worry about reading the documentation of this API. Figure it out yourself how to make the right request and and format the data and put it somewhere, because the tab has already done it for you. Don't have to worry about that. So targets, yeah, like anything from Google spreadsheet to some other newer kind of Postgres, like data world, this stuff that you could do. So what they also have is like they have all these things documented, and you can develop your own. So where do they put stuff? And then let me see. I can. Yeah, let's look at the instructions on GitHub. So, like I said, they have all these getting started. So this is how I learned how to develop a tab and target. So it's quite so it's detailedly documented. So this is the stream that I talk about. So they will have the record message. Is it big enough for everybody? Just give me a shout if it's not. Yeah. So records are just all the data you have. So for example, if you have a tabular data, record will be each entry, right? So they will be all formatted like this. It's all in JSON format. So which is another thing I like about them, because they handle data in a JSON format, which is, I would say, the most flexible way of describing data. Also very convenient for to use with other API as well. So they have the record, they have the states. The state is just kind of describing how what's the state of the things going now. Like, for example, when it's done with this stream, it says that there's 2 user received and then 1 locations received. There's also schema. Schema is just if you have different objects. For example, here you have users objects, so they will have a schema to describe how users should look like. And then there's one for the location. There's a very small example there. Yeah, so that's the basic. It's quite straightforward, to be honest. So let's see. Yeah, so this JSON schema, like I said, is one of the things that I really, really like about them. First of all, because JSON, I think everybody already know, is human and machine readable. Also, there's advantage about it, like being universal. Everybody has it's very easy to understand concept about JSON. Flexible, like I said, is for very complex nested data. You can use it because you can have objects within objects within objects in JSON. So it's not limited to kind of tabular data that all the values in the cell need to be a value, but it could be having nested structure, which is quite cool. Also in JSON schema, so because JSON schema, I think they have their own thing as well. So if you go to their website, I think there's a JSON schema. Yeah, they do have their own website. So if you go to have a look, sorry, the fonts are quite small for them. So you will see that they have, so it's kind of a universal standard thing as well. So it's not just used by Singerio or, and some specific technology is kind of universally used. So they have their own like kind of specifications, stuff like that. So inside, if you dig deeper, you will see that they can reference different objects. So so it's one of the other advantage of using the JSON schema. But of course, the downside, following like all the good things, is always the bad thing. What's the catch, right? So the catch is that it could get very complicated quite easily because of the nested structure. So I think any of you who have tried to read a huge JSON file would know that sometimes even if the indentation or stuff, it could get very confusing if it's very, very big. Also quite difficult to debug a lot of times because just how complicated JSON is and how nested things are. Sometimes you don't know what's wrong, and there isn't a lot of, at least from my experience, I found it quite difficult to debug. A data type of the JSON schema is tricky, I would say, because they don't have the type. For example, I only like have a few example, but like for example, they use number for both integer and decimal numbers, which for me is sometimes I want more control about like what number it is. So it could be good, but it also could be bad if it's not very clear. So let's have a look at how I develop the target and the tab. Let's click on this and have a look. So it works with TerminusDB, so it's kind of in our GitHub repo at the moment. So for example, this is the Singer tab. So you can see it's quite new. So it's so it will pull the data from TerminusDB. So this is what all the tabs do, right? Just pull the data from the source, and the source would be, if you're using the TerminusDB tab, that means that you're pulling from TerminusDB, obviously. So it's written in Python. You can pip install it. Also, so the tab actually also depending on our Python client, the TerminusDB Python client. So it require like kind of modern version of Python, I would say. So 2.7 is a historical version, so don't use that. So that's the requirement. And then after you have installed it with just like other Python tool, you can pip install it. It's also suggested to put it in a new Python virtual environment, because maybe I'll make this a little bit bigger. Just give me a shout if things are too small, because like sometimes I forgot that you are watching maybe in a smaller screen than mine. So it just install it in another in a separate Python environment. There's actually an advantage of doing that, as you can see later, that sometimes different tabs and targets, because they are developed at a different time. So and the tool, the Singer Python, is sometimes not backward compatible. So you have to use different versions of Singer Python, which then it may cause some problems if you're using a very old, let's say very old target with the TerminusDB tab, because we are quite new, and then so the compatibility may be an issue, but you can avoid that by just installing it in a different virtual environment. Then you can have different version dependencies. And also I added a little bit of trick here, because traditionally, if you develop a Singer tab, what the standard procedure would be, let me see if I can show you a typical one. So if we go to their thing, and then they should have something like so this is Singer Python. This is where everything is built on. So let me see if I can find it. For example, Google Spreadsheet, right? So everybody loves Google Spreadsheet. And let's look at, so what the typical process will be. Okay, so you have set it up. Of course, I set up the authentication, but the typical process will be you have to do the discovery. So this is a discover process that all the tabs would require the user to do. So what it does is it will create a catalog JSON. So it basically gets all the schema that is supposed to be for all these data. It will put in a JSON file, right? So it will put in a JSON file. It describe actually like all the data about the stream. So what data are available in this source, right? In this Google spreadsheet, let's say. So and then after that, you can go to the catalog.json, look at all the available streams, and then pick the one that you want, or you can pick all of them if you really want. But that's kind of a process that I found quite tedious, because the catalog JSON could get very big and have too much detail. Sometimes if I am a user of TerminusDB, I know what data I have, or I can use other tools to explore. For example, if you use the cloud version of TerminusDB, which is Terminus X, you can see we have for example, here, that you can kind of exploit with a GUI, right? So then it would be a little bit tedious if you go to see their the catalog JSON. So I added a method of, you can just pull out the different streams by putting it as a config, like putting this information in the config file. Then when the tab works, it will just find the name of that object, that stream, and then get it. That is actually using kind of we can do that. Is the reason being because how TerminusDB store objects or documents is very similar to the JSON schema that I talked about before. So JSON schema is just like the schemas would describe what object there is and then what property the object will have. So TerminusDB work in a very similar way. So we have schema to describe what the object should be, right? And how they should look like, what property they should have, and what type of property they should have, and all this stuff. So, so that's why we can operate in kind of this way, because we really work very well with Singerio.io. So that's how it is. So I think that's quite a lot of information already. But I may actually want to blow your mind by looking at the code. So wait a second, let me see if I can show you the code. So so all this code is so most of it is not written by me. They have a template here. So they do have templates for people to develop their own. So they really encourage people to develop their own tabs and targets. So for example, they have the tab template here. There's also a target template. They just use cookie cutter. So cookie cutter, I think there's different cookie cutter for different languages or things, but Python, we also have a cookie cutter package that you can use to just generate the project very quickly. And then you can start developing. Once you understand how Singerio work, then you can just start developing your own by just using the template. So the template would provide you all these different functions. So load schema, you just have to customize it with your own method of loading the schema. For example, in TerminusDB, we would so connect will basically use the Python clients to connect to the database at your chosen endpoint, and then it will discover the schema from there using the client as well. It's quite straightforward actually, because like I said, TerminusDB store data in a way that's very similar to how schema JSON schema works. So it's quite straightforward. But for example, if you're using, let's say, if it's a tabular database, then you may have to transform a little bit into kind of a kind of JSON format to be able to output it. Discover is the method it calls to print out the catalog JSON. So but most of this is already done. I didn't actually do like anything here because it's very straightforward. So Sync is provide a way to use this logger. So logger is actually is used to print out all these streams. But all these complication, actually, like a lot of these complexity is kind of hidden behind the Singer Python package. So sorry, I have someone calling me on. Sorry about that. Yeah. So where yeah, a lot of complication is a kind of store behind these Singer kind of so the Singer Python library. So for example, they provide schema, they provide these catalogs that you don't have to kind of use log all these kind of different streams. It will have a the writer provided. So for example, they have the schema writer. They will write out the schema stream automatically. So you don't have to understand a lot to be able to do it. So because, like I said, the template provide most of the code, so you can follow all these comment here. It's like, oh, what am I have to do here? Just a few things. For example, like this, you have to customize it with your own technology. So yeah, so that's a quick tour of the tab. So maybe have a quick look at the target as well. So same principle apply. So here you see that yeah, so it's kind of working in a very similar manner that you can use the target TerminusDB with other tabs. So this example tab is even easier because like you just write out some kind of things, very simple. But of course, like you can use any tab that's provided very similarly. I just make use of the template that Singerio provided. Again, there's a few functions that you have to customize. For example, flatten. If you have to, if you're working with a tabular database, then you have to flatten the JSON file into something you can put in your database, for example. So this is just something that I added for debugging. So I can even add a log file myself if I want to. But all these just like if the standard input receive the record, that means that that's the record stream. Then it would just handle it as a record stream, right? So it would check the whether it whether it is a valid, but like use the schema to validate it, and then you can handle it, and then how you insert it is is your work. Then like you customize it or how to insert it into your own database. So yeah, like so it's just a thing that would receive the stream, and then kind of depending on what stream it is, just you have to handle it differently. So that's basically that. So very, very simple and easy to develop your own if you want to, even just for fun, for your API. Maybe you can develop a tab for your API. You're very, very welcome to do that, and then also test it with TerminusDB's tab and target as well. We do have tutorials to show how to use it. So today I'll do the GitHub data tutorial here, which I'll show you in a bit. So yeah, but before I jump into showing the tool itself, I'll just like show you this slide, so if you are interested in TerminusDB or like interested in using the tab and target, you can always find a team here in this or this these links. And also community Discord is very important, because if you have questions, we are happy to answer your questions there. So that's just a small kind of an advertisement before I jump onto the demo. So okay, let's do the demo. So we like I show you, we are doing the GitHub one, which is, so what we does is that here, okay, so yeah, this is exactly the same thing on GitHub. I just use the local version because I love my IDE so much. Also, where was it? Sorry, where was the tutorial? Here, yeah. So also I have a video about it. So if you want to watch a video later, you can also watch that one. But I will show you a quick version of that today. So yeah, so it's just like it's a step-by-step process of how you can set things up. The key point here is that you have to install the tab and target into different virtual environment in Python, which all the instructions are here. So yeah, so you can also do discover for the GitHub. So this GitHub tab provide a lot of things that you can get from the GitHub API, but for demonstration purposes, we are going to get all the stargazers for our TerminusDB repo. So this is what we do. So we find the stargazer stream from the discover catalog or property.json is just a name, it doesn't matter, but this is the output from discover. You find it and then mark it as selected is true, so this will be selected, and then similar fashion, set up the target TerminusDB and set up the project for TerminusDB as well. It will also create a database for you. If you don't have it yet, then it will create it for you. And I just use this magic command to do it. So so basically this one is, well, looks complicated because it's installed in a virtual environment. Basically this is just calling the script from the tab, and then this is the config file, and then we also need the properties.json. For TerminusDB, again, is installed. The script is installed in the different virtual environments, so just have to put the path in, and then we use the config file as well. So here you go. Let's go to our oh my god, this thing is hiding. Wait a second. Sorry about that. Yeah. So let me make it bigger if I could. Okay. So we have here. Okay. So here I have the project already set up. As I'm speed running this now, I have a few minutes to show you. So all these you can quickly get it again, like from the tutorials repo. So all of these is like semi-finished, but I just want to show you the whole thing in action. Let me come here. So let me grab the magic command here, which is very handy. That's why I need to have this to see what's going on. And then go back to my beautiful, beautiful terminal. So run the magic command. So this is what it will look like. So you can see that it will have API calls, and then we'll make all this, all this request, I guess, and then so it will become a stream, and then the stream will be not analyzed but received by the target, and then put in the TerminusDB. So now what we can do is that because we have the TerminusDB Python client install, so we can actually use the extra command to check the status of the database. So let's have a look at the log. Okay, so you see that here we have so I skipped the configuration, but it's called GitHub Star, so I'm running it locally at the moment. So yeah, all these are information, and then you can see that the objects are in search. So schema is in search as a thing, and then documents are in search in two separate commit. Reason being, for this stream, the buffer size I believe is 500. So let's see here. So you can see that here is a visualization of terminus. So this is a visualization of the thing. So this is Terminus X, this cloud version of TerminusDB. It's exactly as the same thing that I run locally. I've done this earlier, so I want to show you this. So we have it here. If you look at all the documents here, so we have 1,560 stargazers. So the stream, yeah, the stream buffer size is 1,000. So that's why it come in into two commits, and because the first 1,000 come in and then the rest. If you want it to be in one stream, you can totally do that. Just change the buffer size, and the tutorial, I think it says how to change the buffer size. Yeah, you can change it to a much higher buffer size if you want to. But it's like choose your own adventure. Do whatever you like. So there's good thing about having a bigger buffer size. There's bad thing about having a bigger buffer size. But so depending on your use case, you can change it. That's what I'm trying to say. So I think that's more or less what I want to show you for this Singerio fun time. So I think I would leave the rest for questions, and you can stare at this amazing slides of our contact detail. So thank you. Yeah. Okay, maybe I should stop sharing. I don't know what I should.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay, sorry, that took a while longer. I didn't find the right button to get myself into the stream. Sorry for taking so long. So thanks first for that amazing talk. I'm still trying to catch up with the speed of information getting into my head, but I do have questions. Someone on LinkedIn asked, how can we incorporate this into automation tasks? Because talking about ETL or ELT is typically involved in doing stuff in pipelines and automation. So can you elaborate on that a little bit? How can I use this to automate processes like my Stargaze account that I can show on my website?
Yeah, so actually everything can be automated because it's written in Python. You can just deploy it on your cloud service. Because like TerminusDB, we have the Terminus X as well, so it's totally on cloud. And all these actually can be done again. Like you can schedule it if you want to schedule it automatically. You can schedule it to run at a certain time, and then you can it could you see that I have added in a log function as well. So you can totally like maybe one way to do it is to schedule it, and then you can log it, and then you have the log file. If everything's fine, you shouldn't have any like horrible kind of scary message on the log file, but otherwise, you can still see it. So it's the good thing about it is like all is like is written in scripts, so you can just like run the procedure. Everything is written in script, so that's the good thing about about this is like you just run it, you can schedule it, you can have the flexibility of even hosting the whole process in your surface, cloud surface. So yeah.
Cool. So since this is moving lots of bits and pieces and integrating with many sources and many potential targets, I mean, I'm strictly reminded of triggers and stuff like that in event-based systems and syncs and pub-sub systems. So this reminds me a lot of that. How can you manage the complexity of dealing with so much different systems? They all should or will have their own idea of how data should be formatted, how data should be looking like. What's the most tricky part of integrating all this into a universal ETL tool?
Yeah, I think the tricky part is that even though JSON schema is very flexible, but a lot of times when you develop a tabs or target, you really have to think about all the possibilities because, for example, like TerminusDB, luckily, how we store things is very, very similar to how JSON schema is structured. So the translation is more kind of direct. But the problem we have the most would be the data type conversion, because we use the XSD type, and then JSON schema use their own type. So the conversion is a bit tricky to cover everything, like because some people can use very, very strange data type, and then that could be a little bit a problematic thing when we kind of try to put it as a universal kind of conversion of what data like type you should use. So that's the challenge mode that we have most in developing this tool for TerminusDB. But I guess like if someone, let's say, develop for a tabular kind of format, let's say SQL database, then maybe the problem would be like how you can flatten a very complex schema, how you can solve the problem of referencing. Maybe you have to create a key for that or something like that. So it really, really depending on the source, the data source that is connected to the target, or the connected to the tab, or the target database that is connected to the target. But for us, I think the data type conversion is the most tricky ones. So
Yeah, I can imagine. And a last one I do have. Now, looking a bit into the future and how fast everything's evolving, I would assume that there's many new targets and many new tabs will come along your way. What do you think will be the biggest challenge for the current design, and how you can bring it into the future, where more and more data will be accumulated by more and more less technical educated people?
yeah, I think right now the thing that I dislike most is that the backward compatibility is not that great. So that's why there's this complication of need to store like the tabs and target into different virtual environments, which could be quite tricky for people who may not be familiar with Python. Creating a new environment and why we have to do that, or like different versions. So it's kind of, it get complicated and unnecessarily. So that's one thing that I dislike the most. So as things move forward, more tabs and target, they would be all at different, develop at different time, and some of them may be like not maintained, or like if they want to be maintained, they have to have a big rewrite to be able to compatible with the newer versions of Single Python. So that's one thing that kind of, I think that it would be very challenging for a maintainer, or like a maintainer of like tabs or targets, that they have to also think about, like if they want to keep updated, they may have to rewrite their tools to kind of make it compatible with the latest version of the Single Python. So that's the biggest drawback at the moment, I think. Yeah.
Okay, Cheuk, thank you. thank you very much for that very enlightening talk. And we're going back to it.